What unfolds when one of the film world's most cherished icons reaches a breaking point, live, in front of millions? When the spotlight burns brightest and the cameras don't blink, certain moments transcend entertainment to become infamous. Tonight, we delve into a dramatic on-air implosion that stunned audiences and sent tremors through the celebrity sphere. This is the tale of how a seemingly ordinary late-night appearance erupted into a no-holds-barred verbal clash no one saw coming. Don't forget to hit that follow button and leave a comment, because the fiery exchange between Hugh Jackman and Laurie Wilson is something you truly have to see to believe. The night began innocently enough, with Laurie's signature monologue setting the tone as Hugh strode onto the stage to roaring applause. After the usual niceties chatter about flights, jet lag, and the crisp weather in Port Avalon, Laurie transitioned smoothly into familiar interview terrain. "So, Hugh, you're returning to the stage, which is exciting news. But I've got to ask, and our viewers are dying to know," Laurie said with that ever-present glint in his eye, "did you really take this role because the offers from the film world have been less than plentiful lately?" Hugh's smile didn't falter, though his pause was just perceptible. "Well, Laurie, that's not quite the case. I signed onto this production because the theater holds a special place in my heart. It's where I started, and I felt it was time to come home. But let's be real," Laurie leaned in, lowering his voice in mock secrecy. "Just between us, when's the last time a major studio offered you a lead role? Come on, we're all friends here." A subtle unease crept into the audience. Hugh kept his tone even, though a quiet firmness surfaced. "I think you may be misinformed about my professional circumstances. I've been fortunate enough to have several projects in active development." Laurie let out a dry laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Projects in development? That's showbiz code for sitting around waiting, isn't it?" He turned to the audience, coaxing out a few hesitant chuckles. "But seriously, Hugh, there's been chatter about your exit from the Claw series. Whispers that maybe it wasn't entirely your decision." Hugh's jaw clenched subtly. "I've stated clearly in past interviews that stepping away from that role after nearly 2 decades was entirely my call." Sure, Laurie replied with exaggerated understanding. "But according to folks close to the production, you were edged out. They say you'd become a bit difficult to collaborate with." A hush fell across the room. Hugh's hands now gripped the arms of his chair. "I'd like to know who these sources are." Laurie waved a hand airily. "Oh, you know how the industry works. People talk. Anyway, moving on to something a bit juicier, your marriage has been getting attention, hasn't it?" Something in Hugh's demeanor shifted instantly. "I came here to speak about my work on stage, Laurie." Of course, Laurie said with mock concern. "But our audience is curious. Some outlets claim your wife's been spotted more than once meeting with a divorce attorney in Rosemere." Hugh's voice dropped, every word sharpened to a point. "You need to tread very carefully with what you're saying right now." Rather than heed the warning, Laurie leaned further in, mistaking caution for weakness. "I'm only repeating what's out there. But let's be honest, between career hurdles and personal issues, it can't be easy being Hugh Jackman these days. I mean, really, what do you have left?" The silence in the studio was absolute. It felt as though even the cameras held their breath. Hugh locked eyes with Laurie, the fury beneath his calm surface rising like a tide. "What do I have left?" Hugh echoed, his voice low and deadly. Laurie, oblivious, continued. "Well, the superhero gig is behind you. Theater doesn't pay like film. And let's not forget, this is an industry obsessed with youth. Time isn't exactly your ally." Hugh gave a short, mirthless laugh. "You know, Laurie, I came here tonight to talk about something I care deeply about. Instead, you've hijacked the conversation with baseless tabloid fodder." Whoa, Laurie lifted his hands, feigning innocence. "This isn't slander, these are the kinds of questions people want answers to." "Questions?" Hugh repeated, a flicker of disbelief in his tone. "You think dragging my personal life into the spotlight under the guise of public interest is journalism?" Laurie offered a half-hearted shrug. "If there's no truth to it, then why not just deny it and move on?" Hugh leaned forward now, his glare unflinching. "Because what you're doing isn't inquiry. It's spectacle. You're using national airtime to peddle rumors and stir the pot for entertainment." "I'm not inventing anything," Laurie countered, his voice growing smaller. "These are stories that have been circulating for weeks." "Circulating where?" Hugh's voice was now unmistakably angry. "Name one credible source backing anything you just claimed." Laurie fumbled with his cue cards. "Well, it's trending on social media." "Social media?" Hugh's voice turned icy. "So this is what passes for journalism now? You're grilling me based on internet gossip and viral threads?" The tension in the studio hung like a thundercloud. Camera operators received frantic cues from the control booth. Audience members, sensing the magnitude of the moment, reached for their phones. And Laurie Wilson was just beginning to realize the gravity of his misstep. Listen, Hugh, maybe we got off to a rocky start. Laurie attempted to reel things back. Why don't we steer this back to your stage production? But Hugh was nowhere near finished. No, Laurie. I believe we need to confront exactly what just transpired here. You invited me onto your program ostensibly to discuss my work, my passion. Instead, you blindsided me with a barrage of personal insinuations dredged up from gossip columns and online hearsay. Laurie's trademark grin had vanished entirely, replaced now by a flicker of genuine worry. The train had long since derailed and he no longer held the controls. I was just trying to keep things light, Hugh. You know how these segments usually go. Hugh's reply landed with the weight of someone who had been cornered and was now choosing to fight his way out. Light? His voice rang across the studio like steel drawn from a sheath. You think dragging my marriage through the mud and peddling baseless accusations about my career is keeping things light? Is that what counts as amusement here? Laurie let out a brittle laugh, the sound strained and unconvincing. Come on, Hugh. You're making this sound a bit heavier than it was. This is late-night television. It's meant to be fun. Fun. Hugh stood, his posture eclipsing Laurie, who remained seated, diminished now under the glare of stage lights and scrutiny. Let me tell you what would have been fun, Laurie, a host who actually did the work, who asked thoughtful questions about the production I came here to promote. The studio was frozen in a collective hush, the kind of silence that happens when an audience realizes they're witnessing a moment that will be talked about for years. Phones were up, recording what was swiftly becoming iconic television. Please, Laurie gestured weakly, why don't we just reset and focus on your play in New Dresden? Reset? Hugh's tone was incredulous. You think you can simply reset after dragging my name through the mud? After reducing a decades-long career and a marriage to tabloid fodder live on air? Laurie gave a shaky laugh, clinging to the illusion of levity. I think you're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a bit of banter. A bit of banter? Hugh's eyes narrowed, glinting with fury. You accuse someone of being washed up, difficult, and on the verge of divorce, all without evidence, and you call that banter? Laurie shifted in his seat, visibly regretting the direction he'd taken things. I was just echoing things I'd heard. Heard from whom? Hugh's voice thundered, commanding the space. Name them. If you're going to tarnish someone's reputation, at least have the decency to stand behind it with something concrete. Panic flickered in Laurie's eyes as he realized the hollowness of his position. Well, I mean, these things circulate in this business. Circulate. Hugh bent slightly, bringing his face closer to Laurie's. So your entire line of questioning was built on half-truths and whispers? You brought me here under false pretenses just to feed the rumor mill. Laurie made a last-ditch attempt to assert control. Hold on, Hugh. Don't make this bigger than it is. I asked the hard questions. That's part of the job. Hugh straightened, his laugh sharp and biting. Hard questions? A real question would have been about the emotional shift returning to live theater after years in front of a camera. Or how I managed the physical toll of back-to-back evening performances. What you did wasn't journalism, Laurie. It was sabotage dressed as satire. The audience sat rapt, unable to look away as the studio transformed into a battleground of ethics and ego. Laurie's usual bravado had all but vanished. I really think you're overreacting, he mumbled, though even he didn't believe it. Overreacting? Hugh's voice spiked with renewed intensity. My wife is watching this show, Laurie. My children might see this segment online tomorrow. And you just publicly suggested, without evidence, that our family is falling apart. And I'm the one overreacting? Laurie opened his mouth, but Hugh wasn't finished. And let's revisit the so-called career decline you so generously highlighted. You claimed I'd been pushed out of a franchise, that offers had dried up, that I was too difficult to employ. Where are you pulling this from? Laurie fumbled through his stack of cue cards, seeking a lifeline. There were articles, reports. What articles? Hugh demanded. Show us. Show this audience the credible documentation you relied on. But the only thing Laurie could offer was silence. I don't have them on hand, he finally whispered. Hugh's look was one of profound contempt. You don't have them because they don't exist. You fabricated this entire ambush, didn't you? Decided before I even walked through that curtain that you were going to humiliate me for views. For clicks. That wasn't my goal, Laurie murmured, eyes cast downward. Wasn't it? Hugh's fury surged one final time. You wanted viral clips. You wanted a headline. And the cost? My dignity. My family. My name. The audience sat in breathless silence, utterly absorbed, bearing witness to a masterclass in how a man responds when backed into a corner and decides he will not retreat. Laurie Wilson looked as though he might vanish into the upholstery of his chair. Let me enlighten you about intentions, Laurie, Hugh continued, his voice now imbued with the steady force of someone who had seized absolute control. My intention in coming here tonight was to share something meaningful. To talk about the art I love, the cast I'm proud to stand beside, and the story we're telling each night under the lights in Westfield. Laurie bobbed his head quickly, his nerves fraying. We can still do that, Hugh. Let's talk about the show. But Hugh shook his head slowly, deliberately. No, Laurie, we can't. Because you've made it abundantly clear that genuine dialogue isn't what you're after. You've just shown your viewers precisely who you are. The words hit with the weight of a verdict. Laurie's face flushed with embarrassment, his once effortless bravado had long since evaporated. Who I am, he tried to echo with an air of wounded pride, but his voice cracked under the strain. Hugh's reply was cold and precise. You're the type who invites people onto his platform only to corner them with fabrications. You exploit real pain and reduce it to punchlines. You twist hearsay into narrative and call it entertainment. All for a cheap laugh. Laurie was visibly trembling now, outmatched and out of his depth. Hugh, please, can we just what? Hugh cut in, his voice rising again. Can we just act like this didn't happen? Pretend you didn't just spend 15 minutes trying to dismantle my reputation in front of a live audience. The room was so silent that even the software of the studio equipment seemed deafening. All eyes were on Hugh, every camera, every viewer, every soul in the room. I'm sorry, Laurie finally muttered, but the words felt hollow, like someone tossing a pebble into a well and hoping it would stop the echo. Hugh fixed him with a long, penetrating stare. Sorry, he repeated. Do you have even the faintest understanding of what you've just done? This isn't going to disappear in a few hours. Your lies will live online forever. My family, my wife, my children will have to endure this garbage you spewed for a laugh. The apology, rather than softening the moment, only intensified the fire. Hugh's presence now filled the space completely, his command absolute. You want to know what's really pathetic, Laurie? Hugh asked, now eerily calm. You actually believe that saying sorry absolves you? That you can tear someone down in public, then sweep it away with a single word? Laurie's eyes darted toward the production crew, silently pleading for intervention. But even they looked stunned, frozen in the glare of the unfolding reckoning. Hugh, it was never my goal to take it this far. This far? Hugh let out a sharp, humorless laugh. It went too far the moment you structured your entire segment around trashy gossip and social media nonsense. The moment you decided to come after my marriage and career with no facts, no integrity, no restraint. Every head in the audience remained locked forward, captivated by what felt less like a television moment and more like the unmasking of something raw and real. Laurie tried again, but Hugh silenced him with a gesture. No, not this time. You've done more than enough talking. Now it's my turn. His voice was steady, but the underlying rage pulsed just beneath the surface, controlled but unmistakable. You want to know what's actually happening with my career, Lottie? Hugh continued, every syllable like a blow. I just finalized a deal for 3 films, each of them more rewarding, creatively and financially than anything you'll see in your entire lifetime. Laurie's color drained. You want details about my marriage? Hugh's tone was a mix of pride and challenge. My wife and I just marked another anniversary. We are strong. We are happy. And we are still together despite the poison you tried to feed the public tonight. There was nowhere left for Laurie to hide, and the realization played visibly across his features. But here's the part that truly disgusts me, Hugh went on. I shouldn't even have to say any of this. I shouldn't be forced to defend my family or my livelihood just because you thought it would make for viral content. Laurie made one last, feeble attempt to interject. I was only trying to Trying to what? Hugh snapped, his voice rising once more. To manufacture humiliation? To generate shares and headlines by publicly tearing someone down? The air was thick with tension, but Hugh wasn't finished. Not yet. Let's be crystal clear about what you've done tonight, he said, each word crisp and resonant. You've proven to everyone watching that you lack integrity, professionalism, and even basic human decency. You're willing to peddle lies for applause. You've shown that your idea of entertainment is inflicting harm. Laurie was visibly perspiring, his composure long since abandoned. Maybe we should take a commercial break, he muttered weakly. A commercial break? Hugh's laugh was a weapon now. No, Laurie. No convenient exit. You dragged me into this under the pretense of a respectful interview. We're going to finish this conversation right here, in front of everyone. The audience, spellbound, leaned in, barely breathing as the moment escalated. You want to know the worst part? Hugh asked quietly, voice steady but laced with disappointment. I used to respect you. I genuinely believed you were one of the few hosts in this business who understood that your guests are more than content generators. That they're human. That they deserve dignity. Laurie's voice was barely more than a whisper. I do understand that. No, Hugh said firmly. You don't. Because if you did, you would have asked me about the work I came to discuss. About the art, the passion, the stories. Instead, you chose rumors, scandal, and spectacle. Hugh began to pace, his controlled energy expanding to fill the studio like a storm front rolling in. Laurie Wilson sat motionless, wilted in his chair, unable to look away as the consequences of his choices bore down on him. Instead of honoring the purpose of my visit, Hugh said, his voice slicing through the air, you chose to shame me, undermine me, and tarnish my name, all on the back of unverified rumors and idle speculation. You chose to exploit my marriage, belittle my career, and question my character without even a glance toward the truth. Laurie made one final, faltering attempt to regain ground. Look, I admit I may have misstepped, but we can fix this. Hugh stopped cold. His eyes locked on Laurie's, ablaze with fury. Fix this, he said, incredulous. Tell me, Laurie, how exactly do you intend to fix this? Are you going to personally call every viewer who watched this broadcast and admit you fabricated it all? Are you going to stand in front of my family and apologize to my wife and children for the lies you so casually aired? Each word was a hammer blow, driving Laurie deeper into the hole he dug. He had no reply, only silence and regret. You can't fix this, Hugh went on, relentless. You can't undo what's been said. The damage is done. Those falsehoods you spouted will live on the internet forever, clipped, reposted, twisted, and echoed by people who don't care what's true. Laurie's voice quavered. I never wanted it to spiral like this. But it did, didn't it? Hugh's tone was icy, every syllable sharpened. And whose fault is that? Did someone force you to read from that script of garbage? Did someone hold a gun to your head and tell you to attack my family? Or did you choose that path all on your own? The audience remained hypnotized, watching Laurie collapse under the sheer weight of his own misjudgment while Hugh stood like a tempest, powerful and unyielding. You made that choice, Laurie. You decided that a few cheap laughs were worth more than integrity. You opted for virality over virtue. You welcomed a guest into your house and then set a trap beneath their feet. Laurie couldn't even meet Hugh's gaze anymore. The shame had made him visibly smaller. And you know what else you did? Hugh's voice lowered to a whisper, the quiet somehow more arresting than his shouts. You revealed exactly who you are, not the affable host with the cue cards and clever jokes, but the man behind the curtain. The one who finds amusement in another person's pain. Hugh straightened, his presence now a towering force over the trembling talk show host. So thank you, Laurie. Thank you for making it perfectly clear to everyone watching what happens when a man with no honor tries to belittle someone who does have principles. Thank you for offering a stark contrast between those who create and those who destroy. Laurie was silent. He had nothing left. I came here to speak about something meaningful. About theater. About storytelling. About art that unites people across time and distance. And instead, you turned it into a farce, a performance of cruelty masquerading as entertainment. Then, turning to the nearest camera, Hugh addressed the millions watching from their homes. To everyone seeing this, remember, if someone invites you into their space under false pretenses only to blindside you with lies, you don't sit quietly. You don't shrink. You stand up. You speak the truth. You demand better. And then, with one final glance back at Laurie, Hugh delivered the closing line with calm finality. As for you, Laurie, I hope this was worth it. I hope the cheap shots you took at my family bought you a few trending clips. I hope the artificial applause was worth the very real loss of whatever credibility you once had. He began walking toward the stage exit, each step echoing like a drumbeat. Just before disappearing behind the curtain, he paused and looked back. Oh, and Laurie? Don't ever call me again. I don't keep company with people who have so little regard for truth and decency. With that, Hugh Jackman strode off stage, leaving Laurie Wilson sitting alone beneath the unrelenting lights. No laughter, no applause, only the quiet weight of humiliation settling over him like a shroud. The only sound was Hugh's footsteps fading into the wings. Laurie remained frozen, staring at his hands, knowing that every moment of this disaster had been immortalized on camera and would soon be dissected, rewatched, and broadcast to the entire world. And there you have it. A moment of live television that will be studied for years, a raw, unfiltered reckoning between a man who stood his ground and a host who crossed every line. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your thoughts below. Was Hugh Jackman right to defend himself so fiercely? Or did he go too far? Let me know what you think in the comments.